Hello everyone, and welcome to this chilling journey. Tonight I invite you to join me in uncovering a story filled with mystery, death, and dark secrets. The Tomb Beneath the Frozen Valley. Before we begin, I'd love to know, where are you listening to this story from, and what time is it where you are? Are you in a warm, cozy room, or sitting outside in the cool night air, with only the sound of the wind and the darkness surrounding you? Leave a comment below and let me know. Now, close your eyes, turn off the lights, if you're brave enough, and prepare yourself to step into a world where shadows and ancient secrets await. Shall we begin? The snow crunched beneath the boots of James Albrecht as he stepped out of the chopper onto the frostbitten ground of the Norwegian wilderness. Above them, the sky was a thick sheet of gray, and the wind howled like a warning whispered by ghosts long dead. They had arrived. James turned toward the rest of the group as the helicopter's rotor began to slow, the noise dying into the moaning of the wind. His gloved hand gestured with quiet authority. Everyone gather your packs. From this point forward, we hike. No signals, no radio, no backup. We're on our own now. 9 others followed his lead, some with excitement glittering in their eyes, others with doubt shadowing their brows. Elena Weiss, a renowned German archaeologist in her late 30s, adjusted her scarf and stepped forward. James, are you absolutely sure this is the place? The legends speak in riddles. We could be chasing ghosts. James smirked, brushing frost from his beard. Ghosts or not, the map was clear. The catacomb lies beneath the valley, the oldest one on record, and we're going to be the first to find it. The group began to move, 10 souls armed with knowledge, courage, and an appetite for the unknown. They called themselves Expedition Black Frost, a private-funded team of explorers, archaeologists, and survivalists determined to uncover one of the most enduring mysteries of Viking legend. Their goal: the lost catacombs of the Skarnheim clan, a warrior cult that vanished over 1,000 years ago, rumored to have been buried alive beneath the ice, sealing a dark secret along with them. Victor Haldor, the Norwegian guide, stayed at the rear, his expression unreadable. His ancestors had lived near the valley for generations, yet none dared cross its frozen threshold. "My father told me," Victor muttered under his breath to no one in particular. "The valley eats men alive." The terrain grew more punishing with every step. Snow knee-deep, wind blinding. Yet the GPS marked their progress with painful slowness. By dusk, they reached the first marker, a stone obelisk barely visible under the snow. Elena brushed it off and read aloud the Viking runes engraved upon it. "Let the dead sleep. Do not answer their call." The team exchanged uneasy glances. "Just superstition," muttered Kyle, the youngest of the group, an American thrill-seeker. But James paused. He knelt before the obelisk, touched its weathered surface. Something was watching them. He couldn't explain it. Like a ripple in the air, a pulse of unseen breath. He stood up quickly and motioned the team onward. That night, they set up camp in a shallow alcove near a frozen stream. The howling wind outside seemed almost alive, wrapping itself around the tents like a predator sniffing out prey. Elena stayed up, reviewing old maps and digital scans. Victor sharpened his knife in silence. Kyle recorded a vlog, oblivious to the darkness pressing in from beyond the firelight. At 3 a.m., someone screamed. James burst from his tent, flashlight drawn. Kyle was gone. All that remained were his boots, still warm, sitting outside his tent, and tracks leading out into the snow. Barefoot. The footprints led into the forest. Bare, human, fresh. James stared down at them in disbelief. The snow was deep, yet the steps were crisp, precise, as if whoever had walked through was entirely unaffected by the cold. Kyle's boots were still warm. It hadn't been more than 10 minutes. "Flashlights on," James ordered. "No one separates." The team fanned out into a line as they moved cautiously into the darkness. The frozen forest groaned beneath the weight of ancient snow. Branches above cracked with the wind, and shadows twisted like smoke around the trees. "Elena, Victor, you stay close. No hero moves," James whispered. The team trudged on, following the impossible tracks, deeper and deeper into the unknown. Then they saw it, a clearing, silent and undisturbed. In the center stood a strange structure, barely 3 feet tall, carved out of ice. It shimmered unnaturally under the moonlight. On top of it, a severed tongue still steaming in the cold. Elena gasped, covering her mouth. "That's human," Victor paled. "This is a marker," he muttered. "A message." Then came the voice, low, whispered, all around them. He spoke. He should not have spoken. The team froze. Flashlights swung in every direction, but nothing moved. Only the wind, only the dark. And the blood trail. It slithered from the icy altar and led back toward a rocky incline. Not footsteps, a dragged body. Without a word, James followed it, weapon raised. They climbed for minutes until they saw him, or what remained of him. Kyle lay slumped at the base of a stone wall, his eyes wide open, mouth agape. His tongue had been torn out. Carved into his forehead in ancient Norse runes were the words, "Let silence protect you." Elena sank to her knees, stunned. What the hell is this place? Victor knelt beside Kyle and placed 2 fingers to his neck. "Nothing. He's dead," he said softly. But he wasn't frozen. They had found him only 20 minutes after his scream. In sub-zero weather, any corpse should have shown signs of freezing. But Kyle's body was still warm. No frost on his skin, no ice in his wounds. James looked around, a chill creeping through his spine. "We need answers, and we're going to find them." That morning, silence gripped the camp like a vice. No one touched breakfast. No one spoke. They buried Kyle in a shallow grave near the tree line, piling rocks over his body to protect it from scavengers. Victor murmured something in Old Norse, a prayer perhaps, or a warning. Then they moved on. By midday, the GPS led them to a break in the valley. A canyon carved by centuries of glacial erosion, narrow and steep. At its base lay a wide, flat opening beneath the earth. Like a wound in the skin of the world, the entrance to the catacomb. Elena's hands trembled as she reached for the old key they had found months ago. Part of a rune-covered stone recovered from a Viking tomb. It fit perfectly into the slot carved into the door. With a heavy groan, the stone door slid open. The air that wafted out smelled of damp rot and something older. Something dead. James lit his torch. "Everyone stays sharp. No wandering off. If you hear something, don't answer." They stepped inside. The catacomb was more massive than any of them had imagined. It didn't feel man-made. The halls were wide, the walls smooth like melted glass, engraved with runes and symbols none of them could read. The deeper they went, the warmer it became. James noticed it first. "It's getting hot." Indeed, the frost on their gear began to melt. Their breaths no longer fogged in the air. Victor touched the wall. "It's warm," he whispered. "Like something's breathing." Then behind them, a sound, dripping, followed by a wet, shuffling step. They turned, torches raised, and saw nothing, only empty hallway. Elena stepped back, and her boot cracked through the floor. She fell with a scream. James lunged and grabbed her wrist, pulling her back up just in time, but in the moment her feet dangled, she had seen something below, rows of skeletons, eyes still in their sockets, mouths open in silent screams, buried alive. When they pulled Elena up, she was shaking. "They're down there, hundreds. No coffins, just stacked like bones." James's expression hardened. "We've found the catacomb," but none of them smiled, because they all felt it now. Something was awake. The shuffle came again, soft, wet, closer. James spun around, flashlight trembling slightly in his grip. "Back to back," he shouted. The team snapped into formation, shoulder to shoulder, eyes wide. Their lights pierced the dark like spears, but whatever moved stayed just out of reach. Then a breath, cold, rotten, against Victor's neck. He whipped around. Nothing. Something's following us, Elena whispered. James nodded grimly. Keep moving, whatever it is. It doesn't want us to stop. They advanced slowly. The air grew heavier with every step. The walls seemed to pulse, as though veins beneath the stone were pushing warm blood through the catacomb. The corridor split into 3, each path equally dark, equally silent. Victor studied the runes on the central archway. This one, he said. It means guardian. James didn't like the sound of that. But they followed him. The passage narrowed. The ceiling dipped low, forcing them to crouch. The smell of old rot and sulfur was thick now, like a burning grave. Then ahead, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber, and there it stood, a massive stone throne half buried in the far wall. Its surface was slick with something dark, not dust, but congealed blood. Above it, chiseled into the rock, were more runes. To awaken the king, speak the unspoken. A brittle wind stirred the chamber, even though no air should have flowed. And lying before the throne, a body, ancient, mummified, curled into a fetal position, its mouth agape in a scream. Long silenced. Elena crept forward, her camera raised. This isn't Viking. Victor's face darkened. No, this is older, pre-Scandinavian, pagan. Then came the whisper again. This time clearer. Speak and be consumed. James turned slowly. No one says anything. The lights flickered. Then Elena gasped and collapsed to her knees. Her mouth opened wide, but no sound escaped. Her eyes bulged, veins darkening under her skin. James rushed to her, grabbing her shoulders. Elena! She clawed at her throat, as if something inside was choking her. Then, with a violent lurch, she coughed up a stone, smooth, black, covered in carvings. The same runes. Victor snatched it. His hands trembled. This is a seal, a protective curse. Someone or something put this inside her. James stared at the stone, pulse hammering. We're not alone down here. They carried Elena between them. She was breathing again, barely conscious, but her lips were cracked and blackened, as if she'd spent hours in a furnace. The tunnels twisted tighter. The deeper they went, the more time lost meaning. No GPS, no signal, just stone and breath and fear. The catacomb was alive, and it was watching. Then they entered the library. Rows of stone tablets stacked like bones along the walls, each etched with runes, symbols, and disturbing images. Humans with twisted limbs, mouths stretched unnaturally wide, eyes gouged out. Records of rituals, Victor whispered. Sacrifices. James approached one tablet. It showed a figure kneeling before the stone throne, his mouth open and something crawling out. Behind him, shadowed shapes, antlers, claws, watching. It's a summoning, James said. No, Victor corrected. It's a warning. Then came the growl, not of an animal, but of the earth itself, a deep, throbbing rumble that shook the walls. Dust fell from the ceiling. The torches hissed, then a voice, echoing from every direction. You entered with breath. You shall leave in silence. And suddenly, the tunnel behind them collapsed. Their only way out, gone. Dust hung in the air like mist. They stared at the collapsed tunnel behind them, heartbeats echoing in their ears. No way back, Victor whispered. James turned toward the others. Then we find another way out. Stick together. We're not dying down here. They pressed forward. The air turned colder, sharp like blades against their cheeks. The walls narrowed into jagged stone, and Elena, though still weak, began muttering. Her eyes stayed closed, but her mouth moved, reciting something. Not English, not Latin, the runes. She's reading the stones, Victor said. Even in her state, she's translating. The whisper returned. The sleeper stirs. A distant groan shook the floor. Then they saw it. A spiral staircase carved straight into the rock. descending into blackness. No railing, no bottom in sight. Without a word, they began their descent. The air was different down here, heavy with age. It pressed on their chests, each breath a labor. And then they saw the temple. Buried beneath the catacombs, the chamber opened wide like a heart carved into the earth. Great pillars held up a domed ceiling, black with soot. Symbols swirled across every inch, dancing in the light of their flickering lamps. At the center, a stone altar, and on it, bones, arranged deliberately in the shape of a human body. But wrong. The proportions were off. Arms too long, ribcage opened like wings, a jaw broken wide enough to swallow a skull. James stared. What the hell lived down here? Then Elena screamed. She dropped to the ground, convulsing, hands clenching around her skull. Her mouth opened, and another voice spoke through her. He was not born. He was made, in blood, in silence, in hunger. James reached for her, but Victor pulled him back. She's a vessel now, he said. Something's using her. The bones on the altar rattled, and the jaw moved. A whisper, louder than any scream, filled the temple. You called me. Suddenly, the torches died out. Total blackness. Then a glow from the altar. The bones were no longer bones. Flesh began to grow. Muscle. Tendons. Wet and slick. Wrapping around the skeleton like vines. Skin slithered over it, gray and cracked like dead bark. And in seconds, a body stood. Not alive, not dead. Its eyes, empty hollows. Its mouth, stitched shut with black thorns. But it breathed. Victor stepped back, trembling. It's him, the nameless king. Elena stood too. Her eyes rolled back, lips still whispering ancient words. James raised his weapon, but it felt useless. Like a twig in a storm, the king stepped forward, and then stopped. Because Elena spoke his name, a word no one should know. The king screamed, not with sound, but with force. A wave of air blasted outward, slamming them against the walls. Lights exploded. Stones cracked. The earth shook. And then, darkness. James opened his eyes to blood. From his nose, the chamber was in ruins. Half the ceiling had collapsed. The king was gone. So was Elena. Where is she? James choked. No answer, just silence. Until Victor whispered, Look. He pointed toward a side passage, fresh footprints leading deeper. James's voice was hoarse. We follow her, no matter what's at the end. And so they descended again, deeper into the nameless king's domain. They followed the footprints through the narrow tunnel. The walls were etched with markings, circles, teeth, eyes, symbols gouged deep, not drawn. No one spoke. They walked in silence for what felt like hours. Then came the stairs. These weren't natural. Marble, carved as ancient. And they led down into a wide vaulted chamber, lit not by flame but by a strange, cold, bioluminescent moss clinging to the ceiling. Before them stood a monastery, black stone, towering arches, its spires curved unnaturally inward, like horns twisted toward the earth. James exhaled. How is this possible? Underground. Victor stepped forward. The Black Monastery. I've read whispers of it. A place where monks sealed the nameless king. Why underground? James asked. Because they failed. Inside, the temperature dropped even more. A wide hall stretched before them, lined with statues, figures in robes, their faces scratched away. Some held blades, some scrolls, but each had the same detail. Their mouths were sewn shut. They passed beneath stained glass windows, strange in a place with no sunlight. The glass glowed faintly with images of sacrifice, silence, and fire. Then, voices. Faint, a chant. He waits beneath the veil. He waits without name. He waits beyond sleep. James raised his light. In the next chamber, they found them. Dozens of figures, dressed in black robes, kneeling in rows. Still, motionless, head bowed. Elena was among them, her face blank, hands folded like in prayer. "Elena!" James shouted. She didn't move. He ran to her, and as his hand touched her shoulder, all the figures stood, in unison, their heads turned, eyes sewn shut, mouths stitched with ash. And yet, they spoke, not with sound, but through the air itself. "She belongs to the king now. She carries his voice. You must not interfere." James stepped back, but Victor held him. "We don't fight. Not here." The monks parted, and Elena walked forward, still in trance. She held something in her hands. A mask, black, made of bone, shaped like a screaming face. She approached James and placed it in his hands. "He waits for you too," she whispered, then collapsed. Later, by the moss glow light, Victor examined the mask. "This isn't a symbol, it's a key." "To what?" He pointed to the far wall, a door, barely visible, shaped like a hexagon, carved into the rock. No handle, no lock, just this. He placed the mask on its surface. It clicked, stone ground open. A new passage appeared, a staircase spiraling even deeper. James looked at Elena, unconscious, breathing shallow but steady, then back to the stairs, to the dark, and took the first step. The stairs spiraled like a serpent into the depths. James descended first, the mask still cold in his hand. Victor followed, his rifle slung and eyes scanning the stone. Behind them, Elena slept, watched over by Annika and Thomas, who had stayed behind. The air changed. It smelled sweet. Not rot, not mold, but something ancient, like incense and bone. At the bottom of the stairs was a library, or what used to be one. Stone shelves stretched in every direction, shattered in places. Scrolls half burned. Books open to pages with scribbled, shaking letters. He watches through mirrors. The eye must never close. The first bearer still screams. James approached a cracked lectern. On it lay a journal, still intact. He opened it. Inside was a single name, repeated 100 times. Alistria, 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 Alistria. And then a sketch. A figure kneeling before a black stone with the same mask on its face. Victor whispered, "This is older than the monastery." They turned a corner and found a statue, life-sized, marble. A woman in robes, her face hidden behind a mask identical to the one James held. At her feet were the words, carved in a language they didn't know. But beneath it, someone had scrawled in blood. She was the first. She still listens. James felt the mask grow heavy. Suddenly, the room shifted. The lights dimmed. The walls breathed. From behind the statue, something stepped into view. Not human. Not whole. Its body flickered like flame. Its head a shattered mask. Pieces floating like orbiting moons. It spoke, not aloud, but into their minds. "You carry what is not yours. You call to the king. You have begun the descent." James stepped back. Victor raised his weapon, but it melted in his hands. The creature surged forward, flickering, and James held out the mask. It stopped, then bowed. Alestria remembers. The first waits beyond the well. With that, the creature dissolved. The room went still. Victor picked up a torn parchment near the statue. It showed a map, a spiral descending inward with circles marked in red. At the center, the well of memory. James looked down the new corridor. It led deeper, always deeper. "Do we follow it?" he asked. Victor didn't answer. He only walked, and James followed. The corridor narrowed. Its stone walls pulsed faintly, like veins beneath skin, glowing a sickly amber light. James had stopped looking behind him. If he did, he was afraid he might see something following them silently. Victor was silent too. Focused, driven. Something in him had changed since the statue, since the voice in their minds. They passed alcoves, each containing statues, warped versions of monks, their faces erased. Hands raised as if begging to forget. James touched one. It flinched beneath his fingers. He didn't tell Victor. At last, the corridor opened into a vast, circular chamber. In its center, the well. It wasn't made of stone. It was organic, twisting like roots, pulsing like flesh. The rim was wet. The air hummed. Above it, a thin silver thread floated in the air, spinning like a spider's silk, leading downward into the blackness. On the walls, paintings, ancient but vivid. They depicted rituals, sacrifices, figures donning the mask. Each ended the same way. The wearer fell to their knees, head bowed. At the bottom of each mural, a single eye, weeping black tears. Victor approached the edge of the well. "I've seen this," he murmured. "In my dreams, always the thread, always the eye." James didn't ask why he never told them. Some things, they were better left buried. Suddenly, the well shivered. The thread snapped. From below came a gasp, like a million mouths opening at once. Then, something crawled up the walls. Not visible, but real, felt in the bones. James collapsed. Victor stood frozen, and from the far side of the chamber, a figure stepped from the darkness. Not a ghost, not a hallucination. It was Eleanor, but her eyes were empty. Mouth slack. She walked like a puppet, strings unseen. "James," she whispered. He ran to her. She didn't respond. Then, from behind her, another Elena emerged, eyes wide in terror. "Don't touch her," the second Elena screamed. "That's not me." James froze. The puppet Elena smiled, and her face peeled like paper. Beneath it, a shifting void of mouths and eyes. Victor fired. Too late. The thing lunged. It struck James and dragged him toward the well. He screamed until the mask in his hand glowed. It burned white. The creature recoiled, hissing. The real Elena grabbed James's arm and pulled him free. Victor rushed to them, rifle raised, face pale with fury. The creature screeched and plunged into the well, vanishing. For a long moment, they just breathed. James's hands shook. Elena was crying. Victor, quiet, unreadable. Finally, Elena said, "I followed you. I saw Thomas and Anika. They're gone, taken." Her voice cracked. "They had no faces when I found them, only skin." James swallowed. They weren't ready for this. And the deeper they went, the less they remembered why they'd ever started. On the wall behind them, something shifted. A door, sealed until now, opened with a groan. Cold air spilled out. A new corridor, winding downward, towards something worse. James looked at the mask in his hand. It pulsed with faint light. He whispered, "What are you?" But it gave no answer, only silence. The newly opened passage yawned before them. The air inside was frigid and thick with the smell of metal, like blood left too long in the cold. The walls were no longer stone, but smooth and black, like polished obsidian, warm to the touch. James reached out. His fingers burned. "Elena," he said, voice low. "This place, it's alive." She nodded, holding her arm. "And it remembers." Victor led the way, rifle raised. The mask now hung at James's belt, softly pulsing. None of them dared speak as they moved deeper into the darkness. The corridor was narrow and twisted impossibly, like it looped back on itself without end. Their footsteps echoed, but the echoes whispered in languages none of them knew. Symbols appeared on the walls, glowing faintly, then vanishing as if shy. Then the whispers grew clearer. "Victor," said a voice behind them. He spun around. Nothing. Again. "Victor." It was Annika's voice, soft, gentle, pleading. Victor's eyes glistened. He gritted his teeth and walked faster. But James had seen his hand tremble. Elena slowed. She touched the wall, and a face appeared beneath her palm. Her own face. Mouth open in a silent scream. She recoiled. James caught her. "We need to keep going." "No," she whispered. "This corridor. It's not a place. It's a memory." James frowned. "Whose?" Elena stared down the hall, her voice hollow. "Everyone's." They kept walking. Then, a doorway. Wooden, old, out of place. They hesitated. James pushed it open. Inside was a dining room. but not ancient. Modern, warm, set for 5 people. A fireplace crackled. Photos lined the walls. Elena as a child, smiling. Her parents, her brother. She stepped in slowly. "It's my family's cabin," she said. "In the Carpathians, but we never came back after." She stopped. Her hand brushed a photo, and it burned her. She gasped. The room shimmered and changed. Now it was James's childhood kitchen. The fridge hummed. A cat meowed from nowhere. He was frozen. His mother's voice came from the hallway. "Jamie, come help with dinner," he almost answered. Then a hand grabbed his wrist. "Victor, don't listen," he snapped. "It's not real." The kitchen dissolved into ash. They stumbled back into the corridor. James breathed hard. Elena clutched his sleeve. "It's feeding on us." "What?" "Our memories. It's reshaping itself to keep us trapped in them," Victor growled. "Then we give it nothing." But as they moved on, James saw flickers in the walls. Scenes from his life, half-formed, haunting. His father dying, his sister laughing, a dog he buried. The corridor was pulling pieces from them, stitching a dream out of grief. And ahead, laughter, a child's laughter. They reached a second chamber, not large, but lined with mirrors, all cracked. No reflections, just shadows standing where their reflections should be. One mirror pulsed red. Elena stepped toward it. In it, a woman with no eyes, sobbing, her hands covered in blood. "Who is she?" James asked. Elena's voice trembled. "My mother." Before she disappeared, the mirror cracked further, bleeding a thick black ichor. Elena turned away. Suddenly, a mirror exploded. A tendril lashed out, grabbed James by the throat, and slammed him into the wall. He gasped. His vision swam. The mask at his belt flared bright white. The tendril screamed and burst into smoke. Elena and Victor pulled James up. He coughed, gasping. "No more mirrors." They ran through the chamber, ignoring the mirror's whispers. Each tried to seduce them. Each showed something they'd lost, but none of it was real. Not anymore. The corridor narrowed again. Light flickered. And then, abruptly, they emerged into a place utterly wrong. The ceiling was sky, but the stars were falling upwards. Mountains curled into the air like smoke. A floating city hovered above. Upside down, James fell to his knees. "It's a memory gone mad," he whispered. "No," Victor said grimly. "It's what comes after memory." At the center of this impossible place was a single door. Wood, iron, ancient, it called to them. Behind it, something waited, something old, something hungry. They moved toward it together. James hesitated. The mask in his hand throbbed. It whispered now, not words, but feelings. Pain, grief, purpose. He didn't understand, but he would soon. James's hand trembled as he reached for the ancient door's cold iron handle. The mask pulsed in his palm like a heartbeat, its light syncing with his own. He glanced at Victor and Elena. Their faces were pale, but determined. Together, they pushed the door open. A blinding light flooded their vision. When their eyes adjusted, they found themselves in a vast chamber. But it was no ordinary room. The floor beneath their feet was made of cracked glass, stretching into an endless void. Below, shadows writhed and twisted. Not quite solid, not quite smoke. Above, a swirling sky, dark with stars and streaked with red. The air was thick, pressing against their skin, filling their lungs with cold fire. "Elena, stay close," James said, steadying his voice. They stepped cautiously onto the fragile glass, which creaked but held. The chamber was a mosaic of broken memories, fragments of time suspended like shards of a shattered mirror. James saw fleeting images. His childhood home, the funeral of his father, moments of joy and sorrow colliding. Victor's eyes darted nervously. "I don't like this place," he muttered. "Feels like it's watching us." Suddenly, from the void below, a cold wind surged up, carrying a voice that echoed inside their minds. "You shouldn't be here." The glass cracked beneath James's feet. He froze as a shadowy hand burst through the floor, reaching for him. James pulled back just in time. "Elena, the mask!" Victor shouted. James raised the mask. It flared bright blue, and the hand recoiled, dissolving into mist. "Who or what is this place?" Elena whispered. James shook his head. "I think it's the core of the memory itself, the heart of the darkness consuming the valley." They moved forward, crossing the fragile expanse. A figure appeared at the far end. A woman, shrouded in mist, her eyes glowing pale blue. "Elena," she said, voice soft but piercing. "I am your mother." Elena gasped, stepping back. The figure reached out. "I am the memory you lost, the truth you buried." Victor raised his rifle. "No," James said sharply. "We need to hear her." The woman smiled sadly. "You cannot escape what you forget." Suddenly, the chamber trembled. The shards of glass shifted, rearranging themselves into a swirling vortex. The woman vanished. James, Victor, and Elena found themselves sucked into the vortex. The world blurred. Colors and sounds twisted into a whirlwind. When it settled, they were somewhere new, a place neither dark nor light. A realm where past and present bled together. They saw visions of their lives, loved ones, regrets, moments of pain and joy intertwined. James felt a pull towards a distant figure. "His father, Dad," he whispered. The figure turned, but it was not his father. It was the creature from the well, but now in human form, smiling cruelly. James stumbled back. "Elena," he called. She grabbed his arm. "We're inside the memory's heart," she said. "It's trying to trap us." Victor aimed his rifle. "Then we fight." The ground beneath cracked open. From the fissure rose shadows, swirling and twisting into monstrous forms. James lifted the mask. It glowed fiercely. The creatures hissed and lunged. James, Victor, and Elena fought with everything they had. Blasts of light from the mask shattered the dark shapes. But the battle was exhausting. James felt his strength fading. Then the creature in human form appeared again. It reached for James. The mask flared white. James screamed as light engulfed him. When the light faded, James was alone. The chamber was silent. Elena and Victor were gone. A single whisper echoed, "Memory never forgets, but sometimes it lets go." James stood. He knew the journey was far from over. James stood alone in the vast chamber, the eerie whisper still lingering in the air. Memory never forgets, but sometimes it lets go. The silence pressed heavily, broken only by the distant dripping of water somewhere deep within the labyrinth. His heart pounded, but there was no time to linger. Elena and Victor were gone, swallowed by the shadows of this realm. He had to find them, and fast. The mask in his hand flickered weakly, its light dim but still pulsing, a faint heartbeat guiding him through the darkness. James moved cautiously across the cracked glass floor, now more fragile than before. Each step sent shivers through the expanse, threatening to shatter beneath him. The swirling sky above seemed to darken, stars winking out one by one. Suddenly, a cold breath brushed his neck, and a shadow darted past the edge of his vision. He whirled around, raising the mask like a weapon. No one was there, but the feeling of being watched was stronger now, almost suffocating. Then the whispers began, soft at first, barely audible, then growing louder, more insistent. "James, James, come to us." The voices seemed to come from the very walls themselves, echoes of lost souls trapped in this twisted memory. James forced himself to keep moving forward, his mind battling panic. A flicker of movement caught his eye. From the darkness emerged a figure. Elena. She looked different. Her eyes were glazed, vacant, her skin pale, almost translucent. "Elena," James called, relief flooding him. She didn't respond. Slowly, she raised a trembling hand, pointing behind James. He turned, heart racing. From the shadows stepped Victor, but his form was distorted, half human, half shadow, eyes burning with unnatural fire. "James." Victor's voice was twisted, a growl beneath the words. James gripped the mask tighter. "Victor, fight it! This isn't you!" Victor snarled, lunging forward with unnatural speed. James barely dodged, raising the mask. Blue light burst forth, striking Victor, but the shadowy form seemed to absorb the energy, becoming stronger. Elena's hand fell, her body swayed as if controlled by unseen strings. James realized the truth. The memory was not just a place. It was a trap, feeding on their fears and regrets, twisting them into monsters. He had to break free. James dashed toward Elena, grabbing her arm. "Snap out of it," he shouted. For a moment, her eyes flickered, a glimmer of recognition, but then a scream tore from her throat. Unnatural and piercing, the chamber shook violently. Cracks spider-webbed across the glass floor. Shadows surged, coalescing into nightmarish beasts. James raised the mask, the glow intensifying. He fought back to back with Victor, who now struggled internally, his human side wrestling with the darkness. "Elena!" James yelled again, desperate. Suddenly, Elena collapsed, and the shadow that had possessed her dissipated into a cloud of black mist. She gasped, eyes wide with fear and confusion. James helped her up. "We're not done yet," he said grimly. "But at least you're back." Victor fell to his knees, panting. "This place, it's alive," he muttered, "and it wants us gone." As James looked around, the swirling sky above began to tear open, revealing glimpses of another world. A light shone through the rift, warm and inviting. Hope. James knew this might be their only chance. "We have to reach that light," he said. But the chamber wasn't done fighting. The shadows roared, plunging the room into chaos once more. James gripped the mask and prepared to face the next nightmare. The chamber trembled as James and his weary companions faced the relentless surge of shadow beasts. The ground beneath cracked and splintered, fragments of glass falling like deadly shards. The swirling sky above tore wider, revealing a blazing rift between realities, a jagged portal shimmering with blinding light. James knew this was their one chance to escape the nightmare, but reaching the rift wouldn't be easy. "Stay close!" James shouted to Elena and Victor, who both struggled to regain their strength after the harrowing battle. The shadow beasts snarled and lunged, their forms shifting between solid and smoke. Each strike was met with bursts of blue light from James's mask, but the creatures multiplied, relentless. Elena gripped James's arm tightly, her eyes wide with fear. "We can't hold them off much longer." Victor, clutching his side where a dark wound pulsed with unnatural energy, growled. "Then we fight through them. No other way." James nodded grimly, stepping forward with determination. "We make for the rift. Fight or die, trying." The team pushed forward amid chaos, dodging claws and snapping jaws. The air thickened with an acrid stench. Decay mixed with something ancient and malevolent. Suddenly, the largest shadow beast, a towering monstrosity with burning eyes and twisted horns, blocked their path. James raised the mask, its light flaring fiercely. The beast roared, charging. In that moment, Victor leapt forward, drawing a jagged dagger he had found earlier. He drove it deep into the beast's side. The creature howled, staggering, but its smoky form swirled, enveloping Victor. A chilling scream escaped Victor's lips as the shadows claimed him. "No!" Elena cried, rushing to his side. James fired a concentrated beam from the mask, dispersing the shadow and revealing Victor's pale, gasping form. "We can't lose him," James said fiercely. With renewed urgency, they dashed toward the rift. The light was blinding, the heat overwhelming. Just as they reached the portal, the chamber began to collapse. Cracks exploded across the floor, the ceiling crumbling. Elena grabbed James's hand. "Jump!" Together, they leapt through the rift, tumbling into a blinding white light. When the light faded, they found themselves outside, standing on the edge of a peaceful valley bathed in sunlight. The nightmare realm was behind them, sealed away. But their ordeal had left scars, and the memory of those lost would haunt them forever. James looked at Eleanor and Victor, battered but alive. "We survived," he whispered. And for now, that was enough. The valley stretched peacefully beneath a sky washed clean of horrors. Yet the silence was heavy with the ghosts of what had transpired. James, Elena, and Victor stood together, their bodies battered, their minds weighed down by memories of the horrors they had just escaped. Elena broke the silence, her voice trembling. "Do you think it's really over?" James glanced back toward the now sealed rift, the faint glow barely visible through the thick mist. "It has to be. We closed the gateway, at least for now." Victor nodded weakly, but his eyes were distant. "But at what cost? We lost too many. The journey back to civilization was slow and haunted. Each step felt heavy with the burden of survival, the images of comrades lost still vivid in their minds. They had escaped death's clutches, but the scars of their ordeal would not fade quickly. Upon reaching the nearest town, James contacted the authorities, reporting the sealed rift and the strange phenomena surrounding it. Specialists and scientists arrived, eager yet cautious, ready to study the site. The team was finally able to rest, but the psychological toll lingered. Night after night, James found himself haunted by visions. Flickering shadows in the corners of his vision, whispers of the past echoing in his mind. He knew that the dark forces they had confronted were not easily forgotten. Meanwhile, Elena began documenting their experiences, determined to record the truth and warn others. Her notes were meticulous, capturing every detail from the moment they discovered the ancient map to the final battle at the rift. Victor, though physically healing, became withdrawn. The wound on his side seemed to carry an otherworldly influence, leaving him restless and pale. He confided in James that he feared the darkness had left a mark on his soul. As the weeks passed, the trio realized that their lives would never be the same. The expedition had changed them, binding them together by trauma and shared survival. Yet hope remained. They had survived, and with that survival came the chance to rebuild. James made a vow to protect the valley and the secrets it held, ensuring no one else would fall victim to the ancient evil. He would work with the scientists and the town, creating a watchful guard against future threats. The story of the expedition spread slowly, whispered among scholars and adventurers as a tale of caution and courage. The valley became a place of reverence, a reminder of the fine line between our world and the darkness beyond. In the end, though the shadows had tried to consume them, James, Elena, and Victor had emerged from the abyss. Wounded but alive, forever changed, yet hopeful for the future. Weeks after sealing the rift, life in the nearby town seemed to regain a fragile normalcy. Yet beneath the calm surface, a new menace was awakening. The ancient darkness had left a scar not just on the land, but also within those who had touched it. James noticed subtle changes in Victor. His once steady gaze now flickered with unease, and shadows seemed to cling to him wherever he went. Elena's research uncovered disturbing legends about the rift, tales of a cursed force that could linger, infecting the living with its malevolence. One night, as the team gathered in the town's modest inn, a sudden tremor shook the ground. The townsfolk panicked, recalling the terror they had barely escaped weeks ago. But this tremor was different. It was not from the sealed rift itself, but from deep beneath the valley. Curiosity mixed with dread, James, Elena, and Victor decided to investigate. They descended into an old mine shaft, rumored to connect to the underground labyrinth they had barely escaped before. Inside, they discovered signs of life, ancient carvings pulsating faintly with a dark energy, and footprints that weren't theirs. The shadows seemed alive, whispering secrets of an ancient cult that once worshipped the darkness itself. As they ventured deeper, they encountered traps and obstacles that tested their resolve. Victor, despite his weakness, led the way, driven by a mysterious force he couldn't explain. Suddenly, the ground beneath them gave way, plunging the team into a hidden cavern where the air was thick with decay. At the center lay an altar carved with symbols of death and rebirth, a chilling reminder that the darkness was far from defeated. Elena's voice trembled as she read from an ancient manuscript. The darkness feeds not only on death, but on fear itself. it will rise again, stronger with every soul it consumes. The trio realized their fight was far from over. This was not just a struggle to seal a rift, but a battle against a malevolent force that sought to consume everything. As the cavern walls closed in, the only choice was to stand and fight, or be consumed by the shadows forever. The walls of the hidden cavern trembled as James, Elena, and Victor steadied themselves, preparing for the inevitable clash. The air was thick with a suffocating darkness, alive with whispers that clawed at their minds. Their torches flickered uncertainly, casting grotesque shadows on the ancient stone. From the gloom emerged figures, twisted shadows with glowing eyes, remnants of the cult's fanatics who had perished but whose souls were trapped, bound to the darkness. The team knew this was no ordinary battle. It was a war of wills, a fight to save their very souls. James gripped his makeshift spear tighter as the first shadow lunged. A fierce struggle erupted, echoes of screams mixing with the clatter of weapons and the hiss of shadows dissipating under fire. Elena, clutching a relic found deep in the labyrinth, a talisman pulsing with faint light, uttered incantations she had painstakingly translated. The talisman seemed to repel the shadows, but only momentarily. Victor fought with a ferocity born of desperation, but the darkness was relentless. One shadow managed to slash at his arm, sending a burning pain that threatened to overwhelm him. Yet, despite his injury, Victor pressed on, shouting orders, trying to rally his friends. The cavern shook violently, rocks falling as if the earth itself was trying to swallow them whole. Elena's voice rose above the chaos, urging the others to the altar. "We need to perform the ritual here. It's the source." They sprinted, dodging grasping hands and the cold breath of the cursed spirits. At the altar, Elena laid out the relics, beginning the ancient rite. The shadows screamed in fury, their forms writhing as the light from the talisman grew stronger. James and Victor held the line, fighting back wave after wave of darkness. Bloodied and exhausted, they refused to yield. The cavern brightened slowly, the oppressive shadows retreating. As the final incantation echoed through the chamber, a blinding light erupted, enveloping everything. The shadows vanished with agonized cries, leaving only silence and a faint scent of sulfur. The rift had been sealed again, this time with a powerful ward. But the price was high. Victor, weakened and pale, collapsed into James's arms. Elena whispered, "We survived, but the darkness may never truly leave." After the harrowing battle in the Shadow Cavern, the trio returned to the town, their bodies battered but spirits determined. Victor's injury was severe, but the others tended to him with urgency, knowing every moment counted. Yet, beneath their care, Victor's condition took a mysterious turn. His skin paled further, and his eyes flickered with a strange light. Elena pored over the ancient manuscripts again, desperate to find answers. The relics had sealed the rift temporarily, but the curse they unleashed was far more insidious. According to the texts, the darkness was a living entity, feeding on fear and pain, but also on the blood of those who had touched it. Victor's symptoms matched the early signs of possession. James refused to believe that his friend could be lost to the darkness. Together, they devised a plan to journey to the legendary Oracle's sanctuary, hidden deep in the mountains, said to hold the power to cleanse any evil. The townspeople whispered of the sanctuary as a place of miracles, but also of great danger. As the team prepared for the arduous journey, tensions ran high. The forest around the town seemed to pulse with unease, shadows twisting unnaturally at dusk. Every creak and rustle set nerves on edge. Along the trail, strange symbols appeared etched into the trees, warnings or messages from the ancient cult. Elena's fear grew as the air thickened with an oppressive presence. At night, the team was plagued by restless dreams, visions of death and endless darkness. One evening, as they camped beside a mountain stream, Victor's condition worsened. He screamed out in pain, clutching his chest as if something inside him was tearing apart. The group struggled to comfort him, but the darkness within seemed to fight harder. Suddenly, a spectral figure appeared by the fire, an ethereal woman with eyes like burning coals. She spoke in a voice both haunting and sorrowful, revealing fragments of the curse's origin. The oracle, it seemed, was bound by the same darkness, trapped in eternal torment. The curse feeds on those who seek power, she warned. Only through sacrifice and courage can it be broken. With renewed resolve, the team set out once more, aware that the path ahead was lined with dangers beyond imagination, and that the final battle for their souls was yet to come. The path to the oracle's sanctuary was steep and treacherous, winding through dense forests and jagged cliffs. Each step brought the team closer to the unknown, yet the weight of Victor's condition pressed heavily on their hearts. His once fiery spirit was dimming, shadows crawling beneath his skin like living things. Elena led the group, clutching the ancient map tightly, as if it was their only hope. James carried Victor carefully, trying to ease his pain, but the darkness within the injured man grew stronger with every mile. The forest seemed alive with hostile intent. Branches twisted like claws, and whispers slithered through the leaves. At night, the air grew cold and heavy. Unseen eyes watched from the darkness. Strange sounds echoed, low growls and distant screams, reminding them that they were not alone. One morning, as they navigated a narrow ledge above a roaring waterfall, disaster struck. A sudden landslide shattered the path behind them, cutting off their retreat. Panic surged. The sanctuary was close, but they were trapped. James scanned the surroundings. A faint trail led up a perilous cliff face, barely visible beneath creeping vines. It was their only chance. With no alternative, the team began the grueling climb. The rock was slick and jagged, and one false step could mean death. Victor struggled to keep pace, his strength ebbing. Elena's hands shook, but she refused to look down. James remained steady, encouraging the group, masking his own fear. Midway, a chilling howl pierced the silence. From the forest below, spectral wolves emerged, glowing eyes fixed on them, teeth bared in silent menace. The team scrambled upward, heartbeats racing, as the pack began to scale the rocks after them. The battle was brutal. Elena wielded a shard of enchanted obsidian, striking with fierce precision. James fought fiercely, using his climbing gear to fend off the beasts. Victor, though weakened, summoned his last reserves to fight back, the darkness within him flaring violently with each strike. The pack was relentless, and the cliffs echoed with the clash of claws and screams. But slowly, the group reached a narrow plateau. The wolves hesitated, snarling but unwilling to risk the treacherous terrain. Breathless and battered, the team paused to catch their breath. They were close, too close to turn back. The oracle's sanctuary awaited, but so did the final test. The plateau opened up to reveal an ancient stone gateway, its surface covered with cryptic runes glowing faintly in the twilight. Beyond it lay the oracle's sanctuary, said to hold the answers to the cursed land and the dark forces plaguing them. Elena approached the gateway with reverence, tracing the symbols with trembling fingers. The air around them shimmered, as if the boundary between worlds was thinning. James and Victor steadied themselves, feeling a mix of hope and dread. Passing through the gateway, they stepped into a vast chamber carved into the mountainside. Massive pillars, entwined with creeping vines and faded murals depicting forgotten legends, rose into shadowy heights. The sanctuary was eerily silent, save for the faint hum of ancient magic. At the center stood an altar, draped in tattered cloth and littered with relics of past pilgrims. Elena knelt, producing a small carved idol said to awaken the oracle's vision. The room pulsed with energy, shadows shifting and twisting around them. Suddenly, a voice echoed, deep and otherworldly. "Seek not the truth if you fear its price." Victor collapsed to his knees, clutching his chest as the darkness inside him writhed violently. The curse was awakening fully, and with it, the malevolent presence guarding the sanctuary. The team prepared for the final confrontation. From the shadows emerged twisted guardians, spectral warriors clad in ancient armor, their eyes burning with unholy fire. A fierce battle erupted, steel clashing with ethereal blades, magic sparking against flesh. Elena's obsidian shard glowed brighter, cutting through the phantoms with each strike. James fought with desperate determination, protecting the weakened victor. The air crackled with raw power as the sanctuary trembled. In the heart of the battle, Victor's curse flared uncontrollably, transforming him into a monstrous shadow beast. But instead of succumbing, he fought the darkness within, regaining a shred of his humanity. Together, the team drove back the spectral guardians, sealing the curse with a final ritual. The sanctuary's dark magic subsided, replaced by a warm, golden light. Exhausted but victorious, they knew their journey was far from over. But for now, the nightmare had ended. The team left the Oracle's sanctuary behind, stepping cautiously into a dense forest known as the Whispering Woods. The trees here were tall and ancient, their twisted branches forming a canopy so thick that barely any sunlight reached the forest floor. A cold mist curled between the roots and moss-covered stones, carrying faint voices that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Elena, still clutching the obsidian shard, led the way. Her instincts told her that the forest itself was alive, watching their every move. The others followed, senses heightened, every crack of twig or rustle of leaves setting their nerves on edge. James scanned the underbrush, his rifle ready, eyes sharp. Victor walked beside him, his earlier transformation still lingering in his tired gaze. Despite the recent victory at the sanctuary, none of them felt safe. "Do you hear that?" whispered Lila, the youngest of the group, her voice trembling. A chorus of soft, indistinct whispers swirled around them, voices speaking in a language none could understand. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, weaving into a strange melody that seemed to pull at their very souls. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shifted violently. Roots burst from the earth, writhing like serpents, snaring their feet and pulling them down. Panic erupted as the forest tried to claim them. Elena raised the obsidian shard, chanting an ancient incantation she had learned from the sanctuary. A wave of dark energy surged from the shard, slicing through the writhing roots and freeing the trapped explorers. But the forest was not done. From the shadows emerged twisted figures, wooden and leafy, half human, half tree, their eyes glowing with malicious intent. The Whispering Forest's guardians had come to defend their domain. A brutal battle ensued. The explorers fought desperately, hacking and shooting at the guardians who attacked with unnatural speed and strength. Branches whipped like whips, roots tried to bind them again, and spectral leaves slashed at their skin. James was grazed by a thorny strike, bleeding but still fighting. Lila screamed as a guardian lunged at her, but Eleanor intervened, slashing through the creature with the shard. Victor, despite his weakness, fought fiercely alongside them, his eyes burning with determination. As the last guardian fell, the whispers ceased abruptly, replaced by a profound silence. The mist lifted, revealing a narrow path leading deeper into the forest. Exhausted and wounded, the team pressed on, aware that the forest's dangers were only beginning, and that something far darker awaited them ahead. After escaping the clutches of the Whispering Forest's guardians, the team followed the narrow path deeper into the wilderness. The air grew heavier, suffused with an ancient energy that prickled their skin and tugged at their minds. The forest slowly thinned, and soon they found themselves standing before the crumbling entrance of what appeared to be an ancient temple, half swallowed by nature. Vines and roots coiled around broken stone pillars, and strange symbols carved into the walls pulsed faintly with a ghostly blue light. Elena's heart quickened. This was the forgotten temple mentioned in the legends, the place where the source of the curse was said to lie hidden. They stepped inside cautiously. The temperature dropped instantly, and the faint glow of phosphorescent fungi illuminated the moss-covered floor. The walls whispered secrets that seemed to echo from the depths of time itself. As they ventured further, the group found a massive chamber dominated by a towering statue of an unknown deity, its face eroded but emanating a haunting presence. Around the statue, a ring of ancient runes glowed with a sinister light. James examined the runes, noting that they resembled a protection spell, one designed to trap or repel intruders. Suddenly, a low rumble shook the chamber. The floor cracked open, revealing a pit of writhing shadows that reached upwards like grasping hands. Before anyone could react, shadowy tendrils lashed out, binding Victor and dragging him toward the abyss. A fierce struggle ensued as the team fought to free him. Elena invoked the obsidian shard's power, summoning a blinding flash that shattered the shadowy chains. Victor collapsed, but was alive. However, the temple had awoken something dark. From the depths of the pit emerged a colossal shadow beast, its form shifting and flickering like smoke and darkness. The beast roared, shaking the very stones around them, and charged. The team scrambled, firing weapons and dodging deadly strikes. The beast's attacks were relentless, each blow capable of crushing bone and shattering armor. Lila and James coordinated their efforts, distracting the creature while Eleanor circled to the runes. She realized the runes could be reversed to seal the beast back into the pit, but to do so, she needed time and the team's protection. As Victor took a blow and fell, Elena began chanting, her voice echoing off the ancient walls. The runes pulsed brighter, swirling with energy that wrapped around the beast like chains. With a final roar, the shadow beast was pulled back into the pit, which sealed shut. The temple trembled, then fell silent. The team gathered their strength, knowing this victory was but a small step in their harrowing journey. They pressed onward, aware that the curse's heart still awaited them deeper in the temple's labyrinth. The air grew colder as the team descended further into the labyrinth beneath the forgotten temple. The walls closed in around them, carved with ancient scripts and eerie murals that seemed to move in the flickering torchlight. Every step echoed, swallowed by a silence so profound it pressed against their minds. Elena led the way, clutching the obsidian shard that glowed faintly in response to the temple's dark magic. She knew that somewhere in this maze lay the heart of the curse and the key to ending it. Suddenly, the passage opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in shadows. At the center stood a pulsating altar surrounded by a ring of flickering flames that emitted no heat. The air was thick with a heavy, oppressive energy, and the ground beneath them vibrated softly. Before they could react, the shadows shifted. From the darkness emerged spectral warriors clad in ancient armor, their eyes blazing with otherworldly fire. The team readied themselves. This would be their deadliest battle yet. Steel clashed with ethereal weapons as the warriors attacked relentlessly. Victor, though wounded, fought fiercely, his every strike fueled by desperation. Lila's arrows found their marks with deadly precision, and James coordinated their defense with tactical brilliance. Elena moved toward the altar, chanting an incantation as the obsidian shard pulsed brighter. The spectral warriors howled, their forms flickering as if fighting to stay tethered to this world. As the battle raged, Elena reached the altar and placed the shard into a carved indentation. Light erupted, engulfing the chamber in a blinding glow. The warriors screamed, then dissolved into motes of light that vanished into the walls. The oppressive weight lifted, replaced by a serene calm. The curse was broken. Exhausted but victorious, the team emerged from the labyrinth into the dawn's soft light. The forest around the temple seemed less hostile, almost peaceful. Though the journey had cost them dearly, they had faced the darkness and survived. The forgotten secrets of the temple would remain hidden no more, and the land was finally free. Elena looked at her comrades, gratitude shining in her eyes. Their ordeal was over, but the bond forged in battle would last forever. The morning sun filtered gently through the canopy, casting golden light on the faces of the weary explorers as they emerged from the depths of the forgotten temple's labyrinth. The heavy silence of the past days began to lift, replaced by a cautious sense of relief and wonder. Elena took a deep breath, savoring the fresh air that felt almost like a promise that the nightmare was finally over. Around her, the others stirred, some limping from wounds, others simply exhausted. But none carried the same haunted look they had when first stepped into the temple. James gathered the group together near the temple entrance. "We did it," he said quietly. "The curse is broken, and the land is safe." Victor, still pale but resolute, nodded. "We've lost friends, and scars will remain, but our mission is complete." As the group prepared to leave, Elena's eyes lingered on the temple's shadowed entrance. Something inside her whispered that the world had changed, not just outside, but within themselves. They had faced death and darkness, but also found strength and hope. Back at their base camp, the survivors tended to their wounds and shared stories of the battles fought. The bond between them, forged in fire and fear, was unbreakable. Lila, who had saved many with her quick reflexes, allowed herself a rare smile as the others looked on with newfound respect. Later, as they gathered around a flickering campfire, Elena pulled out a worn, leather-bound journal. She began to write, documenting the truth of the temple's curse and the sacrifices made. This record would serve as a warning and a guide for those who might follow. Though the horrors they had endured were now behind them, the experience had changed them all. They understood the fragile balance between life and death, light and shadow, and they knew that evil could rise again, but so could courage. As dawn gave way to day, the team set out to return home. Their journey had been marked by loss and pain, but also by the triumph of the human spirit. Elena glanced back one last time at the temple, its dark silhouette softened by morning light. "We're survivors," she whispered, "and this is just the beginning." The days following their escape from the forgotten temple were a blur of recovery and reflection. The team returned to civilization, but the shadows of the past clung to them like a second skin. Each night brought restless dreams, visions of the temple's dark corridors, the screams of their fallen friends, in the sinister presence that had stalked them. Elena found herself unable to shake the feeling that the temple's curse had left a mark deeper than any wound. At times, she caught flickers of movement in the corner of her eye, shapes slipping through walls, whispers carried by the wind. James and Victor agreed that the mystery was far from over. The ancient power they had faced was only one part of a larger, hidden world. Their research uncovered fragmented legends about an ancient order sworn to protect the balance between realms, guardians who had vanished centuries ago. Determined to honor the fallen and prevent further tragedies, the team resolved to seek out these guardians, hoping to find answers and maybe a way to truly end the curse. Their journey took them across Europe, from dusty libraries in Prague to forgotten catacombs beneath Paris. Along the way, they encountered new allies and enemies, secret societies that watched from the shadows and cults obsessed with harnessing dark forces. Despite the dangers, the team's bond grew stronger. Each member brought unique skills, and their shared experiences forged a unity that no external threat could easily break. Yet, as they delved deeper, the line between friend and foe blurred. Trust became fragile, and suspicion simmered beneath every interaction. The curse's influence seemed to reach beyond the temple, infecting minds and twisting realities. One night, as Elena studied ancient texts by candlelight, a cold wind swept through the room. The flame flickered and died, plunging her into darkness. A whisper echoed softly. "The past is never truly gone," her heart pounded. The battle was far from finished, and the shadows of the past were ready to claim new victims. Elena, James, Victor, and the remaining members of their team followed the cryptic clues that led them to a hidden sanctuary deep in the Carpathian Mountains. The journey was arduous, Winding trails cut through dense forests and treacherous cliffs, testing their endurance and resolve. At last, they reached the entrance, a massive stone archway covered in ancient symbols worn by centuries of weather and time. As they stepped inside, a hush fell over the group. The air was thick with history and secrets long buried. Inside the sanctuary, they discovered a library filled with scrolls, manuscripts, and relics that spoke of the secret order, an ancient brotherhood dedicated to guarding the delicate balance between the natural and supernatural worlds. The order had battled dark forces for centuries, but their power had waned, leaving the realms vulnerable. The team pored over the texts, unraveling forgotten rituals and warnings. It became clear that the curse they faced at the Forgotten Temple was tied to a larger conflict, one that threatened to unravel reality itself. As they studied, an elderly man appeared from the shadows. Introducing himself as Malkovich, the last surviving guardian of the Order, he warned them of an impending war between light and darkness. "The curse is only the beginning," he said gravely. "You must prepare for what is to come." Under Malkovich's guidance, the team trained in ancient techniques and learned to harness the energies that flowed between worlds. Bonds were reforged, skills sharpened, and hope rekindled. But the enemy was already moving. Dark cultists hunted them relentlessly, intent on stopping their quest. Ambushes and battles became common, forcing the team to rely on both wit and strength to survive. Through it all, Elena grew into a leader, her determination and compassion inspiring those around her. The team knew the path ahead would be dangerous, but together they were ready to face the shadows and protect the fragile peace of their world. No sooner had the team begun their training under Malkovich's watchful eye than the dark forces struck back with brutal ferocity. It was a cold, moonless night when the first ambush came. Elena, James, Victor, and the others were camped in a remote valley, poring over ancient texts and preparing for the battles to come. Suddenly, a chilling scream shattered the silence, followed by the crack of arrows slicing through the night air. Cultists emerged from the shadows, clad in dark robes embroidered with twisted symbols. Their eyes glowed with unnatural fire as they advanced, weapons drawn and chants echoing like a sinister hymn. The team scrambled for their weapons, the calm of the sanctuary replaced by chaos. Steel clashed against steel, and spells ignited the air as Elena led the defense. James fought fiercely, his experience in close combat proving invaluable. Victor, the strategist, coordinated their movements with precision, ensuring no one was left vulnerable. Despite their training, the attackers pressed relentlessly, fueled by dark magic and desperation. The battle stretched into the early hours, a brutal dance of survival under the watchful stars. At one point, Elena faced a cultist wielding a curved dagger that shimmered with a malevolent aura. Their duel was a blur of swift strikes and parries, each testing the other's limits. With a final, desperate move, Elena disarmed her foe and struck a blow that sent him staggering into the shadows, his dark laughter fading into the night. The ambush finally ended with the cultists retreating into the forest, leaving the team bruised but alive. The attack was a clear message. The enemy was stronger and more determined than ever. As dawn broke, Elena looked at her team, their faces etched with exhaustion and resolve. The war had truly begun, and there was no turning back. The morning after the ambush, the team was shaken but resolute. They knew they had to push forward, deeper into the mountains, to uncover the truth behind the curse and the dark forces that plagued them. Following Malkovich's guidance, they sought the lost sanctuary, a hidden refuge said to hold ancient knowledge and powerful artifacts left by the secret order. Legend spoke of it as a place where reality and the supernatural intertwined, a nexus of unimaginable power and danger. The trek was brutal. Snow began to fall as they climbed higher, the air growing thinner and colder with each step. The path was treacherous, carved into the cliffs with narrow ledges and sudden drops that seemed to vanish into the abyss below. One evening, as they set camp near a frozen lake, Elena noticed strange markings etched into nearby rocks, symbols that pulsed faintly with an otherworldly light. She traced them carefully, her fingers tingling with a subtle energy. That night, as the team slept, eerie whispers echoed through the trees. Shadows danced just beyond the firelight, flickering with shapes that defied explanation. Victor woke suddenly, eyes wide with fear, sensing something unseen watching them. In the days that followed, the team uncovered more signs of the lost sanctuary's presence. Broken statues, ancient inscriptions, and relics half buried in ice. But with each discovery came a growing sense of unease. The curse was not just a legend. It was alive, watching, waiting. James suffered the first major injury of the expedition when he slipped on an icy ledge and fell, breaking his leg. The group was forced to slow their pace, rationing supplies and tending to wounds. Despite the hardships, Elena's leadership held them together. She reminded them of their purpose and the stakes at hand. "We cannot falter now," she said. "The answers lie ahead, and with them, our chance at survival." As they neared the sanctuary, the air grew heavy with anticipation and dread. Every shadow seemed to conceal a threat. Every gust of wind carried a whisper of ancient power. The lost sanctuary was close, but so was the darkness that guarded it. As the team finally crossed the threshold into the lost sanctuary, an eerie silence enveloped them. The air felt thick with ancient magic, and the stone walls bore carvings that seemed to shift when no one was looking. Elena led cautiously, her senses alert for any sign of danger. The group moved deeper into the labyrinthine structure, their footsteps echoing through vast halls lined with faded murals depicting battles between light and shadow. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet. From the darkness emerged ghostly figures, translucent and glowing faintly with an ethereal blue light. These were the Guardians, spirits bound to protect the secrets of the sanctuary. The team braced for a fight, but the Guardians did not attack outright. Instead, they spoke in riddles and warnings, their voices like whispers carried on the wind. "Elena," one intoned, "the path you seek is fraught with peril. Only those pure of heart and strong of will may proceed. The curse is bound to this place, and to defeat it, you must face what lurks within yourself." The team realized this was no ordinary trial. It was a test of courage and truth, a battle against inner demons as much as external foes. James stepped forward, determined to prove his resolve. The Guardians challenged him with visions of his past failures and fears, forcing him to confront guilt he had long buried. Victor and the others faced their own trials. Memories twisted into nightmares, doubts that gnawed at their confidence. But through unity and trust, they overcame each vision, drawing strength from each other. Elena understood that this spiritual battle was crucial. The curse's power fed on fear and division. Only by standing together, accepting their flaws and fears, could they hope to break it. As dawn approached, the Guardians faded, leaving behind a key, an ancient artifact glowing with pure light. It was the key to unlocking the deepest chamber, where the heart of the curse lay waiting. The team steeled themselves for the final descent. The hardest battle was yet to come. The ancient key in Elena's hand pulsed with a cold light as they approached the massive stone door at the sanctuary's heart. Each step echoed ominously in the vast chamber, heavy with the weight of countless secrets buried for centuries. James carefully inserted the key into the intricate lock, and with a slow grinding sound, the door began to open. A gust of cold, stale air spilled out, carrying whispers of long-forgotten sorrows. The team exchanged wary glances. Beyond the threshold lay a spiraling staircase descending into utter darkness, disappearing into the earth's depths. Victor produced his flashlight and led the way down, the beam cutting through the suffocating blackness. With every step, the temperature dropped sharply. A chilling wind howled through unseen corridors, stirring ancient dust and unsettling their nerves. The walls were damp and slick with moss, the silence broken only by the distant drip of water. Halfway down, the stairs opened onto a vast cavern lit by eerie phosphorescent fungi clinging to the walls. Stalactites hung like daggers from the ceiling, and a subterranean river flowed swiftly through the chamber. Elena's voice broke the silence. This must be the heart of the curse, the source of the dark energy poisoning this place. As they moved forward, shadows danced strangely on the walls, as if alive. Suddenly, a low growl echoed, and from the depths of the cavern, monstrous shapes lunged toward them. The team fought fiercely. James swung his makeshift spear, Victor fired his flare gun to startle the beasts, while Elena chanted ancient protective incantations learned from the sanctuary's carvings. Despite their efforts, one creature, larger and more ferocious than the rest, broke through their defenses. It swiped at Elena with claws that tore her sleeve and grazed her skin. Blood mixed with dirt as she stumbled but refused to fall. The battle was brutal, the cavern echoing with roars and cries. Each member pushed beyond their limits, fighting not only for survival, but to end the curse's reign of terror. Finally, with a desperate strike, James plunged his spear into the beast's heart. It let out a deafening howl before collapsing into the cold river. Breathing heavily, the group regrouped. Elena's injury was serious, but not fatal, and the team's resolve burned brighter than ever. They knew this was only the beginning. The true source of the curse awaited deeper within, something far darker, far more dangerous. Together, they prepared to venture onward, into the abyss itself. The air grew colder, heavier as the team descended deeper into the abyss. The faint light from Victor's flashlight flickered, struggling against an unseen force pressing in from the darkness. Elena steadied herself, gripping the walls slick with moisture. Every step seemed to echo like a warning through the winding tunnels. The weight of the ancient curse was palpable, sinking into their bones with every breath. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet. Rocks tumbled from the ceiling, shattering against the cavern floor with a deafening crash. The team scattered, hearts pounding, scrambling for cover. From the shadows emerged twisted, grotesque figures, once human, now malformed by the dark magic saturating the sanctuary. Their eyes glowed with malevolent hunger, and their snarls filled the cavern with terror. James raised his spear defensively, but the creatures attacked with ferocity born of madness. One lunged at him, claws raking across his chest, tearing flesh and armor. Blood poured freely, and pain seared through his body. Victor fired his flare gun again, the bright flare searing the air. The creatures hissed and recoiled, but regrouped quickly. Elena chanted louder, voice trembling yet resolute, calling on the protective spells etched in the sanctuary's ancient runes. Despite their combined efforts, the creatures overwhelmed them, driving the team back toward the abyss's darkest depths. One by one, the explorers were struck down, each death a brutal, desperate battle. Elena found herself face to face with the largest creature, its grotesque form looming like a nightmare. It swung a massive claw, narrowly missing her head. She countered with a swift strike from a broken piece of stone, but the creature shrugged it off. In that moment, memories flashed, visions of the sanctuary's original inhabitants, trapped in eternal torment by the curse, their souls twisted into these monsters. Fueled by grief and fury, Elena screamed an incantation that echoed through the abyss. The cavern walls trembled. The creatures recoiled in agony, their forms flickering between monstrous and human. Seizing the moment, Elena lunged forward, driving the broken stone deep into the creature's heart. It howled, collapsing into a pile of crumbling stone and shadow. But the victory was bittersweet. The abyss seemed to pulse with renewed malevolence, and the remaining team members knew the darkest trials lay ahead. With James gravely wounded and the others exhausted, they pressed onward, their only hope the ancient key and Elena's knowledge of the curse's secrets. The abyss whispered its warnings, but the explorers refused to turn back. The final confrontation with the curse was near. The faint glow of dawn barely penetrated the cavern's oppressive gloom as the battered survivors gathered around a flickering campfire deep inside the abyss. Their faces, grim and tired, told stories of harrowing battles and unbearable loss. The weight of the curse pressed heavily upon them, but the promise of salvation, the ancient key, beckoned them onward. Elena sat beside James, whose breathing was shallow and labored. His chest bore fresh wounds, the crimson staining his clothes. The healer in the group, Dr. Lena, worked diligently, binding the injuries with trembling hands. "We don't have much time," Elena said quietly, her eyes scanning the map etched on her tablet. The ritual to break the curse must be performed at the heart of darkness, the chamber at the very center of this place. But to reach it, we have to pass through the labyrinth of shadows. A cold silence fell over the group. The labyrinth was notorious, an ever-shifting maze rumored to trap even the strongest minds in endless confusion. Many who entered were never seen again. Victor clenched his fists. "We don't have a choice. If we don't destroy the curse, none of us will leave here alive." The group packed their meager supplies, steeling themselves for what lay ahead. The air grew denser as they approached the entrance to the labyrinth, a narrow fissure veiled in swirling mist. Inside, darkness consumed everything. Whispers echoed from unseen corners, voices teasing sanity. The walls seemed to breathe, closing in and stretching apart unpredictably. Elena led, her mind focused, reciting ancient incantations to protect them. Yet even her magic could not banish the creeping dread. Hours turned to days as they wandered, the labyrinth playing tricks on their senses. Time lost meaning, hope waned, tensions rose. Arguments flared as exhaustion and fear gnawed at their resolve. Some wanted to turn back, but Elena's determination held them together. One night, Victor spotted a faint light flickering ahead. A faint hope stirred. They followed it to a chamber unlike any before. The walls were covered in intricate symbols, pulsing with a faint blue glow. In the center stood an altar, ancient and cracked. As Elena approached, the ground trembled. Shadows emerged, less monstrous now, but no less threatening. These were the guardians of the labyrinth, spirits bound to protect the heart of darkness. A fierce battle erupted. Spears clashed with ethereal claws, spells flared against shadowy forms. Each member fought with desperation, knowing this was their final trial. James, despite his wounds, stood firm, shielding the group with his remaining strength. Lena chanted healing spells, keeping the injured alive. Elena faced the largest guardian, a towering figure wreathed in darkness. Their blades met with a sound like thunder. She poured every ounce of strength and magic into the fight. Finally, with a cry that echoed through the chamber, she struck the guardian down. The remaining shadows dissipated, leaving an eerie silence. Exhausted but victorious, the group turned their eyes to the altar. Upon it rested a small ancient box, the source of the curse's power. Elena carefully lifted the box, feeling the malevolent energy pulse through her veins. The ritual to end the nightmare was within reach, but the final sacrifice was yet to come. The cavern was deathly silent after the battle, save for the ragged breaths of the exhausted explorers. Elena held the ancient box reverently, feeling the dark power thrumming within it. The final step was at hand, performing the ritual to sever the curse forever. Dr. Lena set up a protective circle around them, etching symbols with trembling hands. Victor and James, despite their injuries, helped prepare the ancient artifacts. Candles carved from bone, relics inscribed with forgotten runes. Elena began the incantation, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. As she spoke, shadows writhed and flickered along the walls, as if resisting the impending doom. The box began to vibrate violently. A low growl echoed from within, and a swirling mass of darkness emerged, an entity born from centuries of pain and death. "It's the curse's core," Victor warned. "We must destroy it before it consumes us all." The creature lunged, claws slashing the air, its form shifting between solid and vapor. Elena dodged and countered with blasts of light, her magic fueled by hope and desperation. James, summoning every last ounce of strength, threw himself at the creature to buy Elena time. The beast's claws tore through him, but his sacrifice gave her the opening she needed. With a cry, Elena plunged a ceremonial dagger into the box. A brilliant flash blinded everyone. The cavern shook violently as the darkness screamed in agony. Then silence. When their vision cleared, the oppressive gloom had lifted. The cursed energy was gone, but the cost was grave. James lay motionless, his face peaceful for the first time in days. Victor knelt beside him, grief etched deeply into his features. Elena wiped tears from her eyes, but knew the nightmare was over. "We did it," she whispered. "The curse is broken." The survivors made their way out of the cavern, the first rays of sunlight warming their faces. Behind them, the ancient place seemed to sigh, a burden finally lifted after centuries. Though scarred and weary, they carried with them a new hope, the knowledge that even in the darkest places, light could prevail. The sun climbed higher as the survivors emerged from the cavern's shadowy mouth, blinking against the bright light of the outside world. The air tasted different, clean, pure, free of the dark taint that had hung over the cursed land for centuries. Elena, Victor, and the few remaining members of their team, scarred but alive, paused to catch their breath. The weight of everything that had transpired settled heavily on their shoulders. James's sacrifice had saved them all, but the cost was deeply felt. His absence left a hollow space in their hearts, a painful reminder of the price paid to end the nightmare. "We must honor him," Elena said quietly, her voice steady despite the sorrow, "and ensure that no one ever suffers from that curse again." Their return to the village was met with a mix of relief and awe. Word of their survival and the curse's destruction spread quickly, bringing hope to a place long shrouded in fear. Local elders approached with gratitude, sharing stories passed down for generations, tales of the ancient evil that had plagued their ancestors and the bravery of those who dared to confront it. But the victory was bittersweet. The scars left by the curse would not vanish overnight. The land itself seemed to mourn, and the survivors felt the lingering weight of loss. Over the coming days, Elena led efforts to cleanse the area, performing rituals to purify the soil and water. Victor documented everything meticulously, determined to preserve the knowledge and prevent future tragedies. Together, they built a memorial near the cavern's entrance, a solemn reminder of those lost and a symbol of resilience. In the quiet moments, Elena often found herself reflecting on the journey, the fear, the battles, the losses, and ultimately the hope that had carried them through. She understood now that some darkness could only be defeated by confronting it head-on with courage and sacrifice. And as the village began to heal, so too did the survivors, carrying forward the memory of their fallen comrades and the promise of a brighter future. The weeks after their return were filled with unease. Though the curse was broken, an unsettling truth lingered beneath the surface, secrets yet uncovered, shadows that refused to fade. Elena poured herself into research, determined to understand the ancient evil they had faced. Late nights found her poring over dusty manuscripts, translating cryptic symbols, searching for answers. Victor's findings revealed a pattern. The curse was tied to a powerful artifact, hidden deep within the cavern's depths. This relic, known as the Heart of Shadows, had been the source of the land's torment for centuries. But the artifact was not destroyed. It had vanished, slipping through their grasp at the final moment. The realization struck hard. The danger was not truly over. Elena convened the team once more. The survivors, weary but resolute, gathered around a rough-hewn table lit by flickering candlelight. "We stopped the curse's spread," she began. "But the Heart of Shadows still exists. If it falls into the wrong hands, the nightmare could return." Murmurs rippled through the room. "We must find it before anyone else does," Victor said firmly. "And if we fail, the consequences could be catastrophic." The mission was clear: track down the Heart of Shadows and secure it, or destroy it if possible. Their preparations began anew. Supplies were gathered, maps studied, and alliances sought among local scholars and mystics. As the team planned their next expedition, a growing sense of dread settled over them. They knew the path ahead would be even more perilous. Yet, within the darkness, a glimmer of hope endured, a promise that with courage and unity they might finally end the curse's reign once and for all. The dawn broke cold and gray as the team gathered once more at the edge of the village. The memory of past horrors lingered, but determination burned bright in their eyes. Elena led the group, clutching the hastily drawn map that Victor had pieced together from ancient texts and local legends. The Heart of Shadows was believed to lie even deeper within the cavern system, beyond the known tunnels, in an area lost to time and forgotten by most. As they ventured forth, the landscape grew wilder, the trees thicker, and the air heavier with the weight of history. Every step seemed to echo with unseen eyes watching, waiting. The group moved cautiously, weapons ready, senses sharpened. Days passed with little incident, but tension mounted. The oppressive silence was broken only by whispered warnings and the distant call of birds. One night, camped beneath twisted branches, Elena spoke softly. "We're close," she said. "I can feel it." Victor nodded, eyes scanning the darkness. "But so can the others. The curse's guardians are still here." Suddenly, a chill swept through the camp, extinguishing the fire. Shadows flickered unnaturally among the trees. A low growl rumbled from the darkness. The team sprang to their feet, weapons raised, hearts pounding. Out of the shadows emerged figures, twisted and spectral. Remnants of those who had succumbed to the curse, now bound to protect the Heart of Shadows. A fierce battle erupted, steel clashing with ethereal forms. The survivors fought with desperation and skill, each strike pushing back the darkness. When dawn finally broke, silence fell once more. The team was battered but unbroken. They pressed onward, deeper into the unknown, the path ahead fraught with peril but illuminated by hope. The cavern's entrance loomed before them like the maw of some ancient beast, dark and foreboding. Elena paused at the threshold, the weight of their journey pressing down on her shoulders. The air was thick with anticipation and dread. "We don't know what's waiting inside," she whispered. "But it's what we came for." The team took a collective breath and stepped into the darkness. Inside, the tunnel walls glistened with strange, otherworldly minerals that cast eerie reflections in the faint light of their torches. The air was damp, heavy with the scent of earth and something older, something almost alive. Victor's map led them deeper, winding through narrow passageways and cavernous chambers that seemed to pulse with a faint, unnatural rhythm. At last, they reached a vast chamber where the temperature dropped sharply. In the center lay a stone pedestal upon which rested an object that seemed to absorb light, the Heart of Shadows. It was small, but radiated an overwhelming aura of power, a darkness that seemed to breathe. Elena stepped forward cautiously, her hand trembling as she reached out. Suddenly, the cavern shook violently. Stalactites rained down, forcing the team to scatter. From the shadows, grotesque figures emerged, guardians of the heart, bound by ancient magic to defend their charge. The battle was fierce and chaotic. The guardians wielded powers that twisted reality, warping the minds and bodies of the explorers. But the team fought with everything they had, their determination steel hard. After what felt like an eternity, the last guardian fell. Breathing heavily, Elena grasped the Heart of Shadows and felt a pulse, not of darkness, but of light. With a cry, she shattered the artifact against the stone floor. The cavern trembled once more, but this time, the darkness began to lift. Outside, the sun rose fully, bathing the world in warmth and promise. Their nightmare was finally over. The cavern's oppressive darkness was gone, replaced by an almost tangible sense of relief. The team emerged into the fresh morning light, their faces etched with exhaustion but also triumph. Elena held the shattered pieces of the Heart of Shadows in her hands, remnants of a curse that had plagued the land for centuries, now broken. Around them, the landscape seemed to breathe anew. Trees stood taller, birds sang louder, and the heavy fog that had shrouded the valley began to lift. But the journey had taken its toll. Several of their comrades were gone, lost to the shadows, to the ancient magic, and to their own fears. Mourning mingled with relief as they tended to wounds and prepared for the long trek home. Victor knelt beside a scorched patch of earth where the final battle had raged. "This place, it's been waiting," he murmured. "Waiting for someone brave enough to end the curse." Elena looked toward the horizon, eyes sharp with newfound purpose. "We ended it, but the world will remember." As they made their way back through the forest, the villagers they passed greeted them with cautious hope, whispers of the team's bravery spreading like wildfire. Despite all the horrors they had faced, the team was forever changed, stronger, wiser, and bound by a shared secret. The Heart of Shadows was no more, but its story would live on. A tale of darkness overcome by light, of death met with courage, and of hope prevailing in the face of despair. The return journey was quieter than expected. The forest seemed calmer, almost respectful of what had transpired within its depths. The shadows that once haunted their path were gone, replaced by a gentle light filtering through the canopy. Elena walked alongside Victor, the shattered remains of the Heart of Shadows safely tucked away in her pack. The weight of their victory settled heavily in her mind, but questions lingered. What exactly was that artifact? She asked quietly. And who created it? Victor sighed, his eyes distant. Legends say it was forged by a forgotten civilization, one that sought to control life and death itself. They trapped a powerful spirit within it, a darkness that fed on fear and pain. But why did it linger here in this valley? Elena pressed. Because this land was once sacred, Victor explained. The spirit was bound here to protect something, or to punish those who dared to uncover its secrets. The group camped near a tranquil river that night, the fire crackling softly. Around them, the forest whispered ancient secrets, and the team shared stories of their lost comrades. Each name was a reminder of the cost of curiosity, of the fine line between bravery and recklessness. Elena stared into the flames, her thoughts a tangled web of grief and hope. They had survived, but at what price? And what would happen next? As dawn approached, a renewed determination filled the air. They would document everything. The dangers, the mysteries, the sacrifices. The world needed to know. But some secrets, Elena thought, were never meant to be forgotten. As the group moved deeper into the forest on the way back, an eerie calm settled over the landscape. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and moss, and the distant call of birds filled the silence. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. A man, cloaked and weathered, with eyes that held secrets older than the forest itself. "Who are you?" Elena asked cautiously, stepping forward. The stranger smiled faintly. "A friend, perhaps. I've watched your journey. The curse has long bound this land, but your courage has begun to unravel its hold." He introduced himself as Anselm, a guardian of the ancient secrets hidden within the valley. His knowledge of the curse was deep, and he warned that even though the Heart of Shadows was broken, remnants of its power still lingered. "The darkness you faced is only a fragment of what once was," Anselm explained. "There are forces beyond your understanding, waiting for the right moment to return." Despite their exhaustion, the team listened intently. Anselm offered guidance on how to protect the valley and ensure the curse would not rise again. But trust was fragile. Some team members were wary, remembering the betrayals and losses they had endured. Elena, however, sensed sincerity in Anselm's eyes. If anyone could help them truly end the threat, it was him. Together, they prepared for one final challenge, guarding the valley from the shadows that still lurked, and from those who might seek to awaken the darkness anew. The forest grew darker as night descended once again, but this time the shadows did not retreat. They advanced. Elena and her team, now bolstered by Anselm's knowledge, prepared themselves for the ultimate confrontation. The remnants of the curse stirred, fueled by the fragments of the Heart of Shadows, seeking to reclaim their lost power. "Stay close," Anselm warned, his voice steady but grave. "This will not be a simple fight. The darkness adapts and strikes with cunning. As they moved through the dense undergrowth, eerie whispers echoed around them. Ghostly figures flickered at the edges of their vision, vanishing whenever anyone tried to focus. Suddenly, a monstrous shape lunged from the shadows, a twisted, wraith-like entity fueled by pain and rage. The battle erupted violently. Steel clashed with ethereal claws, and cries pierced the cold night air. Each member of the group fought desperately, their survival balanced on a knife's edge. Elena found herself face to face with a towering shadow beast. She dodged its strikes, retaliating with every ounce of strength and skill she had. The fight was brutal, exhausting, but she refused to yield. With a final, desperate strike, she shattered the creature, sending a pulse of light that dispelled the darkness around them. As the first rays of dawn broke, the forest fell silent again, this time for good. The first light of dawn revealed a forest transformed. The oppressive weight that had hung over the valley was lifted, replaced by a fragile serenity. Birds sang once more, and the once ominous shadows retreated into the corners of the earth. Elena and the surviving members of the expedition gathered around the remnants of the shattered Heart of Shadows. Each of them bore the scars of battle, physical wounds and emotional ones, but they were alive. Against all odds, they had survived the curse. Anselm stood among them, his gaze distant but hopeful. "The darkness may never be fully gone," he said quietly, "but its hold is broken. For now, the valley is free." The team reflected on the friends they had lost, their sacrifices etched into memory. They knew the price of uncovering ancient secrets, but also the value of hope and unity. Elena felt a deep sense of responsibility to protect this land from future threats. With Anselm's guidance, they vowed to watch over the valley, guarding against the shadows that might one day return. As they prepared to leave, a gentle breeze stirred the leaves, carrying with it a whispered promise that light, no matter how faint, could overcome even the deepest darkness. The expedition was over, but the story of the valley and its guardians had only just begun. The sun rose higher, casting warm golden light over the valley, now free from the shadow that had haunted it for centuries. Elena stood on a hill overlooking the land, feeling the weight of the past lift from her shoulders. The survivors of the expedition had returned to their homes, changed forever by what they had witnessed. They carried stories of courage and loss, of battles fought in darkness and victories won by the strength of the human spirit. Elena knew their journey was more than an exploration. It was a rebirth. The valley, once a place of fear and death, was beginning to heal. The ancient curses were broken, the spirits laid to rest, and the land breathed anew. In the distance, villagers began to emerge, tentatively returning to their fields and homes. Word of the curse's end spread slowly but surely, bringing hope to those who had long lived in fear. Elena resolved to dedicate her life to protecting this fragile peace. Alongside Anselm and the remaining team members, she would work to preserve the valley's secrets, honoring those who had fallen and guarding against the darkness that still lurked beyond the horizon. As the day unfolded, a gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming wildflowers, a symbol of renewal and promise. The valley was no longer a place of death, but a beacon of hope. The story of the expedition ended, but its legacy lived on, inspiring future generations to face their fears with courage, unity, and unwavering hope. Thank you for joining me on this dark and mysterious journey. The tomb beneath the frozen valley has now come to an end, but the echoes of what happened there, the whispers, the cries, the shadows, may still linger in your mind. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment where and when you listened, and subscribe for more haunting tales like this one. And now, as you return to your own reality, Ask yourself, are you truly alone? Or did something follow you back from the darkness? Until we meet again, stay safe, sleep well, and beware of the whispers in the night.